All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us today. I've got Chris, who is our probably our only droid maker here in the area. Chris, how's it going, man?
Going well yourself?
Pretty good, pretty good. I can see you've got some of your droids back behind you there. What do you got going on?
So I've got a couple of my 3D printed droids behind me. You see off to my right, I guess. I don't know how that's going to look in the video, but off to my right, I've got a R2 unit that I'm working on.
It looks great. It looks great.
Thanks. It's it's been a bit of a labor of love. I started printing in earnest in October, and I think the major parts were finally finished in like the beginning of April to mid-April. So it's been tying up my printer for a while.
Is that all the R2 parts that you have right there printed up, or do you have more parts laying around?
So I've got the major body pieces behind me. Again, you can see the main can behind my pit droid back there. You may or may
Oh, I
not be
see
able
it now.
to see the dome if I move off to the side. And actually, there you
Yeah.
can also see the one of the legs. Let me grab the leg. Give you.
Oh, disaster. Hey, there we go. And that's the disaster we were talking about.
Yep, he's still temperamental.
So, okay, there we go. Got the leg. This is reminding me of an episode of Rebels when Chopper tries to get himself a new leg. Did you ever see that one?
I have, yes. Um, so that's the leg. You can see it's got a decent amount of detail to it.
Wow.
A lot of different parts, and right now it looks like it came out of a junk shop because it's got all the different Bondo and stuff on it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's all completely 3D printed, all the structural parts. I mean, this guy right here, it's probably 3 to 5 pounds in and of itself. So it's, even though it's 3D printed, it's all pretty good structure, strength and whatnot.
So the original R2D2, it was probably made out of wood and plastic and all sorts of different parts, and it was hollow.
Yes. Well, it depends. The one that Kenny Baker was in, yeah, was hollow. They actually did have a couple remote control ones too. Obviously not to the same level that we would have today because, it was the 70s.
Bigger servos, right?
Bigger servos. And the ones that were remote control, they were, they did one thing, or two things. Whereas the ones that we're building nowadays, they're run off of Arduinos and a couple motor controls. You're talking about something that could fit, in a laptop and control a droid that large. So there's a bit of a difference there.
Yeah, we can do a lot more today than ever, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But so if you were to go buy a droid, like a kit or from somebody that was making it, would they be 3D printing it now, or is this something that's really still still coming about?
So much like when you're dealing with the 501st or the Rebel Legion, you can't really buy kits for droids because of the whole intellectual property, copyright stuff. But if you're going to purchase files, if you're going to print the droids, you can do that. One of the nice things is with the 3D printed R2 that I have is the group that developed it and the guy who made all of the files and everything, he's giving them away for free. So I didn't have to pay for any of the files or anything like that. Obviously I had to pay for the material, but that's a whole different ball of wax.
Right.
The only R2 unit that you can purchase is through Lucasfilm and Disney. And I want to say it's like $40K or something like that. It's like car expensive.
Right. It's the real deal, though.
Yeah. Well, supposedly. I don't think anyone's actually bought it that's in any of the R2 groups.
Gotcha. And what else? You got a pit droid back there behind you, too. Now,
Yeah,
that one looks pretty complete.
He's completely printed. There are a few problems that I still have with him as far as putting in some joints. I've got to put a couple of threaded rods and things in to make sure like his head doesn't fall off or anything like that. But he's fully articulate. He has no actual servos or anything, but so you have to manually pose him. But he's great for putting on a display table or anything like that. And he just looks cute. So that's gonna get the attention of people.
Yeah, I think it's probably one of the easier droids that you can start out, at least 3D printing, because it's all there, and then it's to scale, which is in that universe, it's a small little droid. So
yeah,
it's a good place to start.
He's probably about 3 feet tall. As far as 3D printing goes, most of his parts are pretty straightforward. There are a few that you gotta have to get a little creative when you're doing the support structure. But other than that, it's a great entry level droid. I think I put like $150 worth of material or so in him. Obviously, it depends on the current price of material, but I think he was like 6-ish rolls, something like that.
And that was with like a 20% infill.
If I remember correctly, I did 15%. Most of my prints are 15% infill unless they're structure. So again, for example, for this leg that I've got sitting here, that's 35% infill with 4 walls. But most of what I print, unless it's structural, is only going to be 3 walls and 15% infill.
Gotcha. Now you've got a little bit of a background in 3D printing. You're just you're not just like me, where I just kind of watched some YouTube videos and then bought a printer. You've actually got some experience. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so in a previous life, I worked for NASA, which honestly sounds a lot cooler than it really was. I mean, it was a cool gig, but
Never heard of it. NASA?
Yeah, I think I'm pronouncing it right. But I worked there originally as a machinist, and then I moved over into our rapid prototyping group, which was basically making models using different 3D printing software. And the 2 softwares that the hobbyist would be familiar with would be FDM and then SLA, which are in the hobbyists world are the filament printers are FDM, and the resin printers are the SLA. We didn't use the hobbyist ones, obviously, but I mean, a lot of the technology is the same.
So, go ahead.
I'm sorry. No, and I was just going to say, and so, when I finally had a little bit of extra money to throw around and the price for, the hobbyist printers was at least somewhat reasonable, I decided I wanted to get back into the game, and, I bought my first printer, and I think now I have 3.
When did you buy your first printer? When was this?
About a year and a half ago, I think.
Right.
Was my first printer. Yeah.
Cool. And the guys that you were working with at NASA, were they at all interested in printing droids or any Star Wars related stuff?
Honestly, I don't know.
Didn't talk about that.
Yeah, no. The guys I worked with, they were great guys, but I honestly don't know how much they were into Star Wars, to be perfectly honest. I know one of their children was really into Star Wars, so he may have printed a droid, but right. Yeah, I don't know. We were too busy printing stuff that I can't talk about. So
right, of course. One thing that I wanted to talk about was that we're gonna basically make this a segment of our channel where we will be. I don't know what we're gonna call it yet, but maybe something like the Droid Shop or the Droid Workshop, something like that, and we can not only show everybody the droids that we're printing and working on, but we can maybe even, record some of this stuff as it's happening, so we can give people how-tos and stuff, right, and different techniques and things like that, and also avoid a lot of the mistakes that I'm sure you and myself have made. You can go through a ton of filament, and it can really, really be discouraging when you try to print one part over and over and over again, and you just 75% through the print it fails, and you just got to toss it in the box.
there was a part that's actually on that can back there. I don't remember exactly which one it is. The can is 3 different rings: bottom ring, middle ring, and top ring. I think it was one of the middle rings, and it failed about 80% in, and I was almost a full roll into that part. And what I basically did was I used my calipers to saw how high it had measured, and went into Cura, which is the software that I use to slice the files, sunk it down that depth and reprinted it. And I just glued the 2 things together, and you can't tell looking at the body.
So you actually measured it like by the millimeter?
Mm-hmm.
Because
the calipers that I have can measure to the 0.01 millimeter. Now, how accurate that is, I don't know.
Close enough.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, I mean, there was a decent amount of body work that I had to do on it, but I mean, looking at it now, I could point out exactly where it was, and you wouldn't see a seam.
Wow. Yeah. Yes, I've had times where I've ran out of a roll. Oof. And or I could see it coming, more or less, and so I would go ahead and just as it was drawing it in, I would snip it. I would get a whole new roll and wait for it and just feed it in right behind it. And I've done it 2 or 3 times and it's worked. And but I worry about it because there's an retraction. Well, that's a little shouldn't make that symbol, but there's to the extruder, it does this extraction thing, I guess, as the nozzle goes over places that aren't where there's nothing to be printed. I think the printer will extract, and if you have a piece and it feeds all the way through, once it's in, it can't be extracted back out. So when you feed in this next piece, it basically comes back and forth and just kind of bumps it forward. Right. And eventually it'll get through. I was always afraid that it would be a gap, but it actually works. So
I can't remember. Do you have the 10 mini, correct?
Yes, CR10 mini. Yep.
Does that come with the run out sensor?
I don't think so. Okay. Because I most definitely have run out, and that thing was still going to town like nothing had happened. So
yeah, see, both of mine have the filament sensors on them, the run out sensors, which they're a little switch that the filament runs through, and when the filament is not running through it, it shuts the printer off.
What models do you have?
I have 2 CR10Ss, which are the upgraded version of the one that virtually everybody has. It's a Creality printer. And then I have a Orange 10, which is an SLA printer.
Gotcha.
The resin printer.
Yep. And you can use that for really small detailed pieces, I'm sure, for like greeblies and buttons and things like that.
Yep, I've got a few R2 parts that are going to be printed, or rather have been printed with the resin printer. And then, honestly, I use it a lot for D&D minis.
Cool. So you do the D&D thing once a week, right?
I've got 2 campaigns right now running. Yeah.
Wow. So. I've never, ever played. I have role played, of course, but I've never D&D. You're going to have to invite me.
Yeah, I was going to say, we'll have to get you to play one of these times.
Yeah, that sounds like fun.
Once quarantine's over.
That is not what this is about.
No.
This is about droids. So, we've got a few ideas for the channel as far as what we can do, instructional videos showing off our stuff, and who knows what it will turn into. But yeah, we've got a few, places, or I should say pages, Facebook pages, that if you were kind of wondering what it looks like, the stuff that people are making at home, you can check out, type in, droid builders clubs and things like that on Facebook, and you get all sorts of stuff that'll pop up. What is our page called again?
So there are 2 that I rely on very heavily. The First is the one for the R2 3D printed files, and that's Mr. Batterley's Printed Droids. He's from the UK, so I hope I'm getting his name right. Baddelley. That has got to be the best Facebook group that I have ever seen. I don't think I've ever seen a toxic post or anything. They're super helpful, even when people like me ask really dumb questions.
Sure, they get that a lot.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, yeah. And you see the same dozen questions asked over and over, and no one's ever snarky. No, everyone is super helpful.
That's awesome.
And then for the local, and by local I mean Virginia area, there is a group called HR Droid Builders, which are also on Facebook. They're based mostly out of Hampton Roads. Largely because the guys who first kind of organized it were all in Hampton Roads, and that's where, as far as I know, the majority of the droids in Virginia reside.
Wow.
They've got several astromechs out there. I think at least 2 R2s, if I remember correctly. We have a C2B5, which is an Imperial droid. There's at least 1 BB-8, if not 2, probably 3 or 4 mouse droids. There's a bunch out there. But since there isn't a lot for the rest of the state, hopefully we'll change that.
Right.
They kind of are the de facto for the entire state.
So when we say that they're the only ones that we have in the state, what does that mean? Does that mean that they are a part of the 501st, just like we are?
A lot of them are, yeah. The Droid Builders are kind of a sister organization, much like the 501st and the Rebel Legion and the Mando Mercs. They're all kind of sister organizations to one another. It all started, as far as I know, with R2 Builders, and then it kind of branched out to the other different droids, specifically mouse droids. And, there are a few people who are blessed to be skinny enough to wear C-3PO, which I am not. Yeah. But they kind of grew up, side by side of the 501st. And a lot of the guys in Virginia that have droids also have 501st or Rebel Legion costumes.
So if you want to make a droid, do you have to go through a approval process like you do in order to have, to be a character to troop as a 501st member, or is this something totally different?
Yes and no. Now, I don't have a Rebel Legion costume, so I may or may not be bad talking them, and I don't mean to be if I am, but they tend to have more guidelines than the CRLs that the 501st have. I mean, obviously for the specific characters, they're a lot more detailed, but like X-Wing pilot, you can get away with a little more than you could with the TIE pilot. Most of the droid stuff is similar. Now the R2 builders specifically have a tier, which I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. I think it's Builder Council approved, where they've kind of agreed on a standard set of rules, kind of like the 501st CRLs.
Okay.
And you can build to those standards if you want to build an R2-D2 or, another droid that you see on screen. But a lot of people that build R2 units, myself included, are building custom ones.
Right.
Mine is going to be an Imperial inspired R2, but it never actually was in the movie. So at that point, there's not really an approval process per se.
Right.
And, much like a lot of the guys in the Rebel Legion, Mandos, 501st, all of them, they want their costumes to be as good as they can be, even if, maybe that one detail isn't exactly how it's written in the CRL or something like that. So you don't have a lot of people who are making droids that, are not great looking. I would say most, if not all of them, look like they could have rolled off of a set.
Right. And that's kind of what you're going for, is the movie quality look.
Exactly. And one of the neat things with the R2 builders is in movies and other promotional material, they have actually had fan-made R2 units in actual movies.
Right.
Because it's cheaper for Lucasfilm to say, hey, you've got an R2 unit. You know how to drive it. We'll fly you out to, wherever we're filming, put you in a hotel for a couple days, you drive your R2 around, and it's a lot cheaper for us as the studio to have you come out than for us to build our own droid.
Very smart.
So yeah, there are plenty of fan build droids that are actually in movies and other promotional material.
That's awesome. That fans can have opportunity like that to be a part of something.
Oh yeah, I'm not jealous at all.
They're obsessed about. Yeah. Well, if you hurry up and get that thing built, maybe there'll be another cameo for R2D2. Yeah. We'll see. Now in the future, do you plan on? Do you see yourself working on any other large droids like an R2 unit or a BB unit?
So, I think a BB unit would be really cool to make. There are people who 3D print them. In fact, most of the BB units that are rolling around are 3D printed, from what I understand. That is a challenge that I'm not ready to take. I don't think my wallet is ready to take.
Yeah.
That's
a big one.
It's not cheap. This guy is going to run me probably about $1,500 all said and done. But that's cheap compared to, from what I understand, compared to what BB units run. There is someone in our area in Southwest Virginia that wants to do a BB, but from what I understand, he's still a couple years down the road from doing that.
Right. Well, there's so many different droids out there, so many different opportunities. I think I'm actually going to go ahead and look into a pit droid as well. I think it'd be really cool. We have a security, or not a security camera, but like a nanny cam for our Rabbit, and the camera is just about the size of the eyeball of that pit droid. And the camera is really nice. It's high quality. It even has night vision, and it's a 24-hour stream that you can you get an app and you just log in and you can see what's streaming. And I thought it would be so cool to have a pit droid with the camera on my printer table watching my prints. So I can just, tap into my droid and see what's going on, look through his eyes and see what's going on in my prints, because I print stuff during the day all the time. Right. I work if by Google Maps, I'm 8 minutes away. So, it's nothing for me. I come home on my lunch breaks and I check on my prints and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And
that's nice.
It is. It is nice. But yeah, trying to, whenever you see things like I had shared with you, I was printing this gunner helmet. The printing two pieces at once just wasn't working, and it actually kicked the entire frame, the bed off of the, what do you call it, what is on top of the bed, the glass plate that's on the bed, what do you call that?
I normally call it the build plate or the build mirror. I use mirrors because they by definition have to be flat.
Okay.
I just call it the build plate.
Yeah, well, that thing is in the floor, so it's very unusual. But I just quit, printing two things at once, one piece at a time, and it's been great.
I had a part that most people complain about not having good enough adhesion. I had a part that it adhered a little too well, and actually pulled some of the glass off of the top of the
wow.
Mirror. Yeah, it was. In fact. No, you see one of the feet behind me. It wasn't that foot. I was about to say I think it was that foot, but it wasn't that foot. It was one of the other ones. But
was that the heat?
I don't know what it was. Honestly, I've been using that mirror for a while, so I think just the heat cycles, heating up and cooling down and heating up,
broke it down.
I think, yeah. I'm not a material scientist, so I can't tell you, but
who knows?
It sounds good, and that's what we're going to go with.
Yeah, it can be challenging sometimes.
Yeah.
but it's like projects like this can probably make or break a good 3D printer, and I feel like I'm learning a lot from my mistakes. And
Oh yeah.
although I look back and I feel like the first day that I pulled that printer out and set it up, I was basically smashing it with a rock trying to get it to work. And now I'm actually, I actually see what's going on. I understand what's happening, leveling your bed and stuff like that. It's a lot of work. And not everybody that's going to be building droids will be using 3D printers, but a lot of what we'll be showing, probably the majority of what we'll be showing, will be 3D printing, because it just seems like, I mean, it's hard to look back at this point once you've gone into 3D printing. I'm printing my armor instead of getting a vacuum sealed suit, and I probably will buy a vacuum sealed or vacuum form thing eventually, but once I realized that the world of 3D printing, where you can create just about anything and down to like the detail, I just don't, it's hard to look back and say, oh, well, I might want to go, build a droid the old fashioned way with wood and just, kit bashing it and making it look. But once I realized that, I think what makes it is, with 3D printing, you get the proportions. You get the proportions and the ratios, and everything's right. And, when you make things from hand, which almost every single one of these droids they were made from scratch, and they weren't made from templates or anything like that. But if you tried to make your own droid the way that they made their droids, it just wouldn't look like it. It just wouldn't feel like that, that universe, that Star Wars universe. So to print it, to have all the proportions and everything exactly correct, it screams Star Wars, that world, that look. And I don't know if it's, the shapes or what it is about the architecture and everything that you see in Star Wars that makes it so unique. But it's not Star Trek, and it's not anything else. It's not Harry Potter. It's Star Wars. It looks so unique, and I think that's the magic of 3D printing. And even with your mouse droid, not all of it, but a little bit of it was 3D printed. Right?
Yeah. The Grableys on the top, the wheels, I've got little Imperial cog hub wheels, and the internal structure is all 3D printed.
But the rest of it is actually, isn't it a kit, or?
It's a vacuum form shell.
Yeah.
I got it from Granite Earth, which is one of the two big suppliers. The other being Intergalactic Supply, I think, is the other guy that tends to make them.
So, people aren't going to, start printing every single piece, today.
No.
We're still it's going to be a hybrid thing, but definitely for certain things, it's hard to imagine. Like, I don't see myself ever, now that I've got a 3D printer, I would never make a pit droid from scratch. I've got to print it. Go ahead.
Well, and some of those make more sense to 3D print. For example, the pit droid. The pit droid, while there were physical models, a lot of what you see on screen was CGI'd.
Right.
So, a lot of times there wasn't a physical prop there. Whereas opposed to an R2-D2 or, some of the stuff from the original trilogy, there were physical props there. That's not to bash the prequels. There were plenty of physical props there as well.
Right.
But there are some things that are more conducive to 3D printing. I'm fortunate in that, I grew up in the world of composites, so you can have a 3D printed part that's mated to a machine part that's mated to, some fiberglass that you molded, and all those sorts of things can be combined together. And they really do, if you know what you're doing, can really give you something that's greater than the sum of all the parts.
Nice.
At least in my opinion.
No, I agree. That makes a lot of sense. So yeah, I mean, we've got 2 droids so far. Well, 3 if you count the mouse droid. I'm gonna definitely start looking into the pit droid myself. Maybe we can get a pair. I saw somebody make some Imperial pit droids. They had the little cog on their chest.
Oh yeah, he's totally gonna be Imperial. All of my droids are Imperial.
Right. Well, if you don't know, the 501st, we are the bad guys. We are the Imperial. We are also, I mean, we're just about. It's kind of weird because the clones are considered 501st, but a lot of people don't consider clones to be the bad guys, you know?
Yep. Yeah, I'm not walking into that debate. I'm sorry, I'm not walking into that one.
Yeah, I'm working on a clone, so I'm in the middle of that battle. But
I do not have the body type for a clone. A clone would not look good on me.
I don't know. With 3D printing, I think that's the thing. You can get the ratios and everything.
In theory. In theory.
I don't know. I guess it would make you a little extra tall.
Yeah.
I don't know.
See, I could do a clone, but then no one would be around to drive the droid. So
Right. Yeah, that's true. Droids first.
Exactly.
All right, Chris. Well, I think unless you got anything else that you'd like to add.
No, just like I mentioned earlier, if you're interested in doing droids, especially if you're doing 3D printed ones, Mr. Baddeley's printed droids on Facebook. If you're local, HR Droid Builders. Astromet.net is kind of where all of the R2 stuff started. And I mean, we're out there. If you're interested, hit us up. If we can't answer the question, we know someone who can. And it's really just a great big family, I think.
Yeah, just like the 501st and the Rebel Legion and all of it. It's it's the things that we're interested in that really brings us all together. And the things that we're interested in are kind of nerdy, kiddie stuff, but it's still relevant. It's still awesome stuff like our 3D printing, and it's not just not a complete waste of time. We're actually learning. We're building ourselves and also droids at the same time. So
yep,
I'm looking forward to more videos. We'll definitely have to do some build videos and showing people how we go about doing it. The R2D2, we can do a update video every now and then and see how far you're going. Maybe that'll encourage you to get it done even sooner.
Well, if it would stop raining and give me some time to paint.
Raining.
I've been sitting on it for probably about 2 months now at a standstill because it's been either too cold or too wet to work on it.
It's a weird spring.
Spring. Yeah.
But we are in Southwest Virginia, so if you don't live in Virginia, you don't realize that you can have 4 seasons in one day. And that's what we experience.
Oh yeah.
All right, Chris. Well, thanks for coming on, dude. And we'll get back to it here in the future. Try to get us get this whole thing going, and more videos for sure with the building and stuff. But more updates like this. This was our first video of the series, so we're trying to figure out what we want to do. And I'm sure we'll, as we come from this, we'll get more ideas and we'll come back and it'll be great.
Yeah, my pleasure.
But yep, thanks for coming on, and thank you everybody for watching, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.